it's Ashley and welcome to Sparky Loves Books BookTube. Today I'm going to be talking about the 7 and 7 readathon that I participated in all last week and what I read for the readathon. It took place from last Sunday to yesterday, which was Saturday the 6th of August. And I did manage to read 7 things in 7 days, and that was the entire goal of this. You could read whatever you wanted, any sort of thing, be it a play or a graphic novel or a manga, anything like that, just 7 things in 7 days. And I had decided, once I saw Ashley from Said the Stories video, where she was announcing that she was a co-host for it, I decided that I thought I could probably do it. It was a bit of a last minute decision for me, and I just plowed away as soon as I had made the decision, and yeah, I managed to do it, which I'm super excited about. So I'm just gonna go into it and talk about the 7 things I read for the 7 and 7 readathon that just took place last week. So the first thing I read was Exit Pursued by a Bear by E.K. Johnston, and I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. This book takes place in Canada, and it tells the story of Hermione Winters, who ends up being sexually attacked while at cheer camp over summer before her senior year. And once she wakes up from that and has to go through the rest of her school year as a senior, she has to struggle with how her friends perceive her, how to find the person who attacked her because she doesn't know who attacked her, and how to deal with the trauma of the after effects of being raped. I went into this thinking it was going to be a 5 out of 5 star book, but there were a couple things that held me back from that. First of all, it kind of advertises itself as being a story of Hermione and Polly, her best friend specifically, and how she wouldn't have been able to get through anything she went through without Polly, who is a very strong character, very brave, very self-sufficient. She doesn't hold back. She says whatever she thinks, and she is perfect for Hermione after Hermione goes through this. Polly is exactly what she needs, and their friendship is amazing. It's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. It just didn't have as much of that friendship as I thought it would. I thought it would be really centered around the two of them, and it just wasn't. So that was a little bit confusing for me because I really thought that was going to be more in the book, and it wasn't. Other than that, I thought it was a really great book. It really spoke to some of the internal struggles that a rape victim has, and some of the therapy that doesn't necessarily work, and some of the coaching, and how sometimes other people, when they say things they think are helpful, aren't actually helpful. So it deals a lot about what a community is like post-rape, and what a person is like post-rape, and maybe what they kind of need versus what people think that they need. So it was really good. It was nice to read a story about a community coming together after an incident like this, and instead of having it be super depressing and just not very hopeful at all, this instead showed that you can be strong after something like this, and you can ask for help, and people can support post-rape victims, and there is a way to do it that is a very sweet way, and this sort of showcased that. So that was really nice. It's a nice idea for people to maybe get a glimpse into. So 4 out of 5 stars. The second thing I read was Artemis by George O'Connor. This is a ARC that I received from NetGalley, and this is going to be the next book in his Olympians series, in which he creates graphic novels based on each of the Greek Olympian gods, and I think Artemis is due out in January 2016. I ended up giving this novel a 3 out of 5 stars. I really like the artwork in it. It does focus on other individuals telling how they perceive Artemis, such as her mother Leto and her brother Apollo. It doesn't, however, get into much detail about Artemis herself. I feel like I still don't know much about her. The myths that George O'Connor chose to showcase to describe Artemis, I feel like didn't actually do much showcasing. I think that they really showed a lot about Leto, a lot about Hera, a lot about Apollo, but not much about Artemis herself, and even some other like Greek heroes and stuff. They really showed a lot about those myths, but even though Artemis wasn't involved in those myths, I didn't know anything about her. So that was a bit of a disappointment. I did learn about the myth of Orion in more detail than I had previously known, so it was a bit educational for me, and I learned not that much about Leto because we had just gotten Apollo's story before this, and they have the same mother, so I already knew about Leto's story, and it was like rehashed, which was really odd. I thought it was really weird to choose to rehash Leto's tale with Zeus and birthing Apollo and Artemis rather than showing more of Artemis herself. So I feel like I still don't know much about Artemis's personality or what George O'Connor thinks of Artemis's personality. So that's why I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Ikigami Volume 3 by Motoro Mace. Ikigami is a manga series in which a dystopian version of Japan has a government that systematically kills people by injecting a virus in them that disperses when they turn, I think, 18. They choose who to kill in order to solve population control. So this was volume 3, and the 2 people in this book that are chosen to die, one of them has a sister who is blind from a car accident, and he wants to donate his eyes to her. The other one is the son of a politician who is using her son's inevitable death to gain votes for a political run that she's doing. Both were very interesting stories. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I really love some of the ideas that it brings into my head. It makes me really think about some things and some issues that I probably wouldn't have thought about otherwise, and it really kind of makes you question people's intentions and the government's intentions, and it's just a really good series, and it's really accessible. As a manga, I find it really easy to read. It's not at all like fantasy based, and it doesn't involve a lot of confusing characters. You get half of the book is one story and half of it is another story, so you don't get really convoluted plots. It's really easy read. I really highly recommend this manga series. It is incredibly interesting every single time. Each story is individual and each character you really end up sympathizing for, and this volume 3 was no exception. The 4th thing I read for the 7 and 7 readathon was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. This was a big disappointment. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars, and honestly, if it wasn't Harry Potter, I probably would have given it 2 out of 5 stars, which is incredibly heartbreaking, but that is the honest truth in my opinion. This tells the story of Albus Potter, who is Harry's youngest child, Harry and Ginny's youngest child. Harry's scar starts hurting, and Albus has also entered into Hogwarts in the beginning of this book, and he befriends Draco's son Scorpio Malfoy, one or the other, I can't remember which, and is a bit of a rebel and ends up sort of not hating his father, Harry, but really just despising him and wanting to not be anything that Harry wants him to be. And he ends up making some really stupid decisions, and they really end up impacting the entire wizarding world. We do get to see Professor McGonagall, who's actually now Headmaster McGonagall. We learn about a lot of other characters too, where they ended up, like Neville Longbottom, and that was pretty cool as well. But overall, honestly, this just felt like a ploy to get more money. I understand it being a play. I think that's a really cool idea, to continue the Harry Potter story in a play, which is being shown in London and opened the same night that this book came out, actually. This kind of felt like it was either fan fiction or like it was the play purposefully designed in a way that could be put into a book. Like, this doesn't actually feel like a screenplay. This feels like they took the screenplay and made it a little bit more accessible so that they could bind it and sell it, which I don't think was a very good idea because it just fell really flat for me. And it's all dialogue because it's a screenplay, so you don't get much character development because you don't get like insight into any character's minds or anything like that. And the plot was just really felt like an excuse to return to the characters. All of the drama and action that happens, again, seems really forced. I really probably would have enjoyed this book more if more time was spent with Albus and Harry, because that was super interesting to hear what Albus had to say and the demons that Harry was trying to get through to be a good father and the worries that they both shared. Also, Ginny is really awesome in this book, which was like the saving grace of this book. So that was a good part of it, but other than that, yeah, 3 probably more like 2.5 stars for this book. Just so disappointed. I'd rather have reread all of Harry Potter than have read this new Harry Potter novel. And the last 3 things that I read were the Wicked and the Divine series. Right now, only 3 volumes of the series are out. The 4th one is due out in October of this year, I believe. I really loved the first 2 volumes, mostly the first one. Still loved the second one, but didn't quite hit it as well for me as the first one. And then the third one was just not good. I gave that one a 2 stars, and I gave the first 2 4 stars. This series is about the 12 gods who are reincarnated every 9 years, and they only live for 2 years. So once they find out that they're a god and are like chosen, they only live for 2 years after that point. And again, this is only every 90 years that they are revealed to be gods. This is about the current cycle that is happening of the gods. It takes place in 2014, and it follows Laura Wilson, who is just a human who is a fanatic of the gods, because all of the gods are pop stars. And I think that they're pop stars so that they can inspire others and be hope for mortals, I guess. But Laura's a human and she's a fan of all of them, but she kind of gets sucked into all of their drama when one of the gods invites her backstage. So she gets stuck into their drama, and I really like Laura as a character. She is my favorite character. And I really like the representation of characters in this. There's some queer and transgender and other sort of sexualities in these books, which is a really cool representation. By the third one, the art style changes and becomes really like cartoony and round, and the coloring for it isn't as good. Whereas in the first 2, I really like the smooth and flat and very color-toned pages and artwork. It was really good. And then, like I said, it just doesn't work in the third one. They have really good cliffhangers in volume 1 and 2, and then the third one is like, that's it? That's the entire story? Like, I'm confused and I don't care. I was very confused about the story and didn't know why they chose to tell that part of the story in volume 3 and didn't care about the part that they were telling. Just really weird choices all around as far as story and art go. So first 2 volumes are great, and then the third one makes me worry about how the 4th one is going to be, honestly. But I'm going to continue with the series because it's a pretty interesting idea. And that's it. Those were my reads for the 7 and 7 readathon. Let me know if you participated in the 7 and 7 readathon and how your August reading is going so far. I know it's only been 7 days, but I'm curious to know how you guys are doing. So thanks for watching. Happy reading.